Welcome to episode 62 of Reading Between the Reels. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. If you've been enjoying the show, please tell someone about us. Send a tweet, post to Facebook, write a review on your favorite podcast catcher, or just recommend the show to a friend. I'm Craig Dickinson, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Corey Heitschmidt and Justin Eldon. How's it going, guys?
It's not a video podcast. I can't see you, Corey. Things are great.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yes. Okay, good. Corey, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Creed, the new Rocky.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm very excited about this film because I really like this film, but I'm also just as excited because I'm going to start with you, Justin, on overall thoughts, because Justin had not seen Creed or any of the Rocky movies before this viewing. Is that's correct, right, Justin?
Hold up. Let's back up here. Okay. I'm going to take a step back. Last week after the episode, we were talking about upcoming episodes, and I'm like, yes. Craig, I need to watch the Rocky movies before I go into Creed. And he's like, no, Justin, I want you to stay ignorant. Don't you watch those films. I want you to go into it completely blind and ignorant. So I tried to educate myself, but Craig would not let me.
Yeah, I can't help it. I just wanted to see what would happen.
But you see how untapped that potential is? I mean, to get your viewpoints and your thoughts, Justin?
Oh, no, I'm totally kidding. I kind of wanted to do it that way, too, so it was fine.
So tell us, Justin, what were your overall thoughts on Creed?
All right, so a little background on me as well. I am not a sports person. So going into this, I already am just like, I have like an internal eye roll. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to enjoy this. And when I watch films, I typically, because I have a herd of young children, I typically don't watch them in one sitting. I will watch them over 20-minute segments over a week or two. And this is no exception. I did that with this as well. And for the first like 30 minutes, Craig, I think I remember talking to you when we were at school, and I was like, after I'd seen the first 30 minutes, I'm like, it's a slog. I don't think I like this movie. I'm not going to like it. I don't want to finish it. And then after that, I could not stop watching it. I thought it was fantastic. I can't remember the last time a movie put me on the edge of my seat while watching. And that's what I got during the final fight of this film. Like, you are on that emotional journey with Michael B. Jordan, and you see him grow and develop and change and work for it. And he feels like a very real character because he has very real development and like very real world problems. But at the same time, like, you're happy for him because you get to see him overcome all those things. And during that very final fight, like I said, I was on the edge of my seat because I honestly did not know. I'm like, is this the type of movie that would make him lose at the end? I didn't know which way that was going to go. And I was, I hope my wife doesn't listen to this episode, but I had to pretend like I had to go to the bathroom in order to finish this movie. Like, I gotta go. And then I watched the last 20 minutes, and that was probably rude of me, but I really wanted to finish it. Anyway, very good movie. I liked it overall.
Okay. That's great. And I can't wait to dig into some of the specifics. Corey, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I think this movie as a whole, this is an incredible sequel or passing the torch. I'm not even sure what you say here. Is this a sequel? I mean, is it just the next generation of Rocky? But this, I think
legacy sequel is the term, right?
Yeah, but it's such an amazing feel. And here's the question that I have watching this movie. This movie is a very different feel because there's a lot of silence in this movie where there's no background music, and you get this awkward conversations where they're talking and they're doing things, and the sound grips or the people that do the sounds are focused on small things. So you don't have background music, but you have keys clinking or stairs are creaking, or they go to grab a chair and you hear it move. And these,
or like the sound of them spitting into that spit bucket every so often or something.
Yeah. And things like that. And to where it's a very different feel than most movies you get nowadays. where there's always something in the background with music and a soundtrack, especially for something like this where a soundtrack is going to be a big deal. And that creates a different feel. But when you go watch the old Rocky movies, that's the exact same feel you have with Rocky, the first Rocky movies, where you don't have all that. But then you bring in the training, the fighting, the movie, the fights, everything, and you get this incredible sounds and music that just moves your soul in an emotional way with everything going on. And so my thought was, do people who have never seen this, and I thought of you, Justin, having never seen Rocky, do they get that same emotion and feeling that we get of the Rising Rocky theme song that makes the hair stand up in the back of your head?
Mm-hmm.
When he's watching Apollo Creed and Rocky super fight on YouTube and shadowboxing, and you hear the old Rocky theme song, and I could feel my hairs tingling on my neck. Do you get that same emotion, or do I only get it because I have the nostalgia of having watched the Rocky series all through this, and that music just, you hear it and instantly your heart's back into the underdog story?
Yeah, so there were two moments in this film where I knew that like the scene had greater emotional significance than what I was just watching. Like it was a callback to something else. It was at the beginning when Adonis is watching the fight of his father and Rocky, and then it was towards the end as he's running down the street and all the like dirt bikes and four wheelers are driving around him and stuff. Both of those scenes, I'm just like, there's something here. I think it's supposed to be a callback, and I feel emotions, but I don't know how to process them because I haven't seen the other movies.
Yeah.
Really?
But just being a human growing up, you're still like vaguely aware of those iconic Rocky scenes, even never having seen the movie. I've seen it parodied so many times and referenced so many times. And so to a degree, I felt its importance, but probably not to the same degree as you gentlemen who have seen the previous movies.
Well, and that's what I think. I think you look at the previous movies and you look at this, and it has the same grit, the same power, the overcoming, rising quality of this hero of this tale, this underdog story, and from the same ultimate underdog movie of all time. And so I think that's how I view this. This is an absolute perfect extension of the Rocky series. And I think hopefully, Craig, this makes you, or Justin, this makes you look and go back and say, I got to go watch Rocky 1,
Yeah.
Rocky 2, Rocky 3 for sure, Rocky 4, Rocky 5.
Yeah. Rocky Balboa.
Oh no. So,
I mean, you know what I'm just saying, Craig, Justin, you're in there. You're in now.
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I've been friends with Craig for both of you, I guess, for about 5 years now. And I have a little book, it's a digital book, but it's like Captain America's little book, where every time you guys reference a movie, I'm just like, I'll add it to the list. And Rocky is on that list. It was pretty far down there, but now it's further up. So it was definitely my intention to watch it at some point. I wasn't avoiding it on purpose. I'll definitely watch it.
Tell your wife you're going to use the bathroom. You go in there just to get 20 minutes.
I'll be out in 2 hours, honey.
2 hours.
Bye.
Why do you look like you've been crying? That's what she's going to say, because that's a Rocky movie. That's what happens. You cry at the end of it.
Well, and that's the thing too, Justin, that I love that you kind of discovered on your own that Rocky and these movies are not, they're boxing movies kind of, but it's not about boxing. It's about overcoming odds. It's about father and sons most of the time. Even whether it's a surrogate father or not. I mean, it's a drama just masquerading as a sports film. So I think that the themes work universally, whether or not, like I said, I'm not the biggest boxing fan. I wouldn't sit and watch boxing. If maybe it was on, I'd watch it for a few minutes, but I'm not, I like sports, but I don't really care to watch boxing, but I will be sucked into a Rocky movie because of the story they're telling.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, I have played a lot of Wii boxing, so I'm a little bit of an expert. So, as much as I don't like sports in general, I know a thing or two about what Adonis and Rocky went through with my own personal training on the Wii.
Yeah. So before we jump into cinematography, I wanted to touch on something that Corey brought up too about like how you categorize this film, which I think is fascinating because it is, and the easiest one to say is, yes, it's a legacy sequel, but it's also a reboot of the series. And it's also, spoiler alert, it's a remake as well of the original film. So it definitely, I think it captures the spirit of the original, and apparently it works on its own, which is my biggest question. I couldn't answer that question because I've seen the other films first. So I'm glad, Justin, that you went through that so we can kind of talk about that a little bit.
No, I think it absolutely works on its own. If I didn't know there was a Rocky film, like if I was living under a rock and I just didn't know that was a thing, I think I would want a sequel because I'm like, I would know, okay, this Rocky guy, there's something more to him. He's kind of a big deal. But I tried to watch with that in mind, like, okay, is there any part of this that is not making sense? And I don't think so. I didn't really catch anything. I think the context of certain things probably would have made more sense, but I do feel like the filmmakers catered to maybe a new generation that hadn't seen Rocky.
Nice.
I think that was part of their purpose.
Okay, cool. All right, well, let's jump into cinematography. What are some things, composition, color, camera work that you guys noticed? And you guys can just jump in wherever.
I gotta throw this out.
Yeah.
One of all the things that I looked at, there's a lot of long fluid shots, and there's two parts. There's the fluid shot when he's walking up to the Philly gym, and he knew Rocky said, "Hey, you can't go to the same gym of the guy you're going to fight," so he's bringing him to this Philly gym, kind of out of the way, a little more rundown. They walk up the stairs, and this whole camera is one long shot. There's no cutaway. Mm-hmm. And the movement of the camera is from behind as they're walking up. It pans in the gym, and you start to see and get the setting of the gym, but you still hear them walking and talking to everybody. And then it zooms in and out and through the people, like conversations to where, in real life, they probably had to step back so the camera could go right by them and go to the other side of the conversation. It's this one long continuous shot. And it's absolutely stunning because you realize the whole room that they were in, this whole gym, was the stage. That the whole thing is the show. It's not just this one little corner and we got this camera on this angle and it cuts away to this conversation and we see it going back and forth. Every one of these guys is doing this little part, and Sylvester Stallone walks off to go get some coffee, and it's very real feeling. It's a different view than you get in most shows because you get the cutaways of the conversations back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah. And that's real.
You said that you said there were two.
And then the second one, they did the exact same thing in his first bout, is a 2-round full continuous shot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I picked up on that one. I was hoping you wouldn't mention it so I could sound cool.
So I looked that up because it was so incredible, and I thought, this is one shot. This is one thing that's taking place. And found out that was shot 13 times, and the 11th one is the one they used in the movie.
Oh, jeez.
It's almost, you think about how much they had to do for that one thing.
Yeah.
All the moves that had to be choreographed and everything to where the camera goes in to them making little comments and smirks back and forth and then zoops back, and then all of a sudden we're back into the fight where the boxers.
The thing that would amaze me too is the punches. Those punches looked very real, and to do that in a single shot over and over. And I would rewind, or like I said, we don't use film anymore, but like I would go backwards to watch that scene over and over. And I was trying to figure out, because he gets cut right above his eyebrow, and I couldn't figure out, maybe someone can explain this to me. How did they do that in a single shot? How do they like make a cut appear like that?
And it must have, I can only think either one, that's a real cut, or two, he steps back and one of the shots where it zooms in on Leo the lion, and he's talking and making smirks and hitting his gloves, getting ready.
Yeah.
That he must step back, and some makeup artist must be right there and slaps it.
Some guy runs in and just slaps it on his face.
All right, here you go.
So,
here's the next part.
Okay,
And
so yeah, I wanted to clarify this. So we were talking about the Sparino fight. So the first official fight, not the fight in Tijuana, because those are shot very differently.
No, yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
Both very interesting because I had a lot of that stuff too. You had the first fight in Tijuana. It's like the camera's down below, just kind of watching through, like you're kind of watching it as if you're a spectator through the ropes, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Sparino fight where it's just the camera's in there and it's moving around and it feels like you're in an Oculus game. Like it just keeps moving. You're right in there and it's just moving around. And that's much more modern than like in the Rocky films. Rocky films are typically just shot kind of high angle, which you get a lot more like in the final fight with Conlon. But that one was super immersive, which is pretty great.
Yeah, when that final fight was coming up, I'm just like, ooh, I wonder if they're going to do this in a single shot again. But I guess they didn't. Okay. I didn't do my research apparently, but was that first fight, was that actually done in one shot or was it some movie magic to make it look like one shot? Oh no, Corey, I guess you said they did it 13 times.
I looked it up, and on Amazon does the little X-ray.
Oh yeah, the X-ray.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And it even said that. It said it was one. The cinematographer made that one long continuous shot, and that was planned. And what they wanted
fantastic.
To do. And it took 13 attempts to get that film. They did 13 times, and the 11th one was the one that made the cut. But
Nice.
they emphasized that it was not. There were no. They've been told there's a trick here, like you pan away and you stop the camera and you restart. Nope, there was no stopping and starting anywhere.
Yeah, because there's a couple films that try and pull that off. What's that World War I film?
1917.
1917. They try and pull that off and make it look like one shot. But you can kind of tell there's every once in a while they'll go down a dark alley and you can tell, okay, that's when they stopped and they picked it back up or, whatever it may be. But yeah, that whole scene, I just kept looking, okay, where are they cutting? Where are they cutting? They never did. So yeah, that's super impressive.
Great. I did want to point out too, we mentioned the fight. He's watching the YouTube fight. And that he steps in front of Rocky there, and like he's fighting his dad. I thought was an amazing shot, and there's so much great metaphor in that as well. That like he's fighting with his own legacy, and he's kind of fighting with how he feels about his dad. Just a great shot there. And you also see a similar shot when he's in the restaurant, when he's in Adrian's, and they're kind of standing. Rocky's on one side. There's like a triangle. Rocky's on the left, Adonis is on the right, and then Rocky's on the left in the picture as well, and Apollo's on the right in the background in the shot of the photograph of them fighting. So just a couple nice parallels that were very much like they're echoing things.
Triangles are important, Craig.
Yes,
I've heard that before.
I also really like the mirror boxing when he's at the Front Street Gym and when he's fighting himself, again metaphorically, like this is a personal internal struggle. So. Which are always the most, those character versus self conflicts are always the most interesting.
I couldn't help but laugh during that scene because it reminded me of that Pixar short where that old man is playing himself in chess.
See,
kind of took me out of the moment.
Text connection, though, Justin. That's what our kids are supposed to. Our students are supposed to do. This reminds me of. Anything else in cinematography that you guys wanted to point out? I think I may have one or two more, but.
There was a part. Now I thought it was in the first fight, but now that I think about it, it was not. I believe it was when he first got in the ring and he kind of wanted to prove himself, and he's just like, "I got this. I'm self-trained, but I can do it." And he kind of gets the crap beaten out of him. Mm-hmm. He gets hit to the ground, and the camera falls with him.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if the cameraman just like threw himself down, but it was very unexpected and like. Visually violent, and as a viewer you very much felt like, oh, that hurt, oh, that was very like abrasive and shocking. It was nice, and it's nice that it wasn't overdone, so that moment felt stronger. Like I believe that's the only time they do that in the film. Everything else is pretty fluid.
Yeah, we talked about that when we did Knives Out, that there's a very similar shot when Chris Evans attacks Ana de Armas and they both kind of fall to the ground and the camera moves with them. This is much more violent than that too. And then right after that, because I had that, I'm glad you brought that up. Right after that, they have, from his point of view, there's a Dutch angle where he's kind of sideways, at a 45-degree angle, looking up at the guy that clocked him. And it's, again, super immersive in some of these fights. You really do feel and hear, like, we'll get to the hearing in a second.
Did you notice the cameras in the final fight, the big match at the end, where the cameras are right there in the corner as they're boxing? And
Yeah.
because it's a televised fight, it's an HBO fight,
Right.
that we would be watching, pay-per-view or something. And so they have these cameras right there. But in my head, I noticed the camera, and my first instinct was, "Oh my gosh, that's a movie mistake. How they leave that out?" But then I forget because you're so in the story,
Right.
and then you forget, and you go, "Oh my gosh, this is a televised fight," in the real world, and there would be cameras everywhere, obviously, right there in the action, as these guys are filming the show.
Yeah. What a great way to get coverage.
But wait, but it's a great way to kind of slip in a camera and not have
Yeah.
to worry about all that scrubbing they have to do at the end. But you can film these great angles and cutaways that they're going to have
Nice.
to do for the actual movie making.
That's good, Cash. All right, sound. I already kind of alluded to the sound, so I'm going to just jump in with the first one. Was in that first fight where he's fighting Stuntman Wheeler, when he gets hit in the head, you have this kind of muffled, echoey sound, which it kind of gets, you're feeling what Donnie's feeling. And I just love that. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And there's one other one I wanted to talk about too. When he's getting the referee is explaining the rules to him right before he fights Leo. And as he's talking, it kind of fades out. And then you see like Donnie's kind of just tuning out. And then he freaks out. And that's the part where he's like, "Yeah, I got my gloves off." Because he had to take a crap.
Yeah.
But it's like you can feel him freaking out because we're like, what? I'm disoriented too. So I love that when filmmakers do that.
Really, he just wanted to finish a movie. That's really what's happening in that scene. Take my gloves off. I got to finish a movie.
I think Craig, you hit it really on the head because this movie has so many different things, the hits, the emotion, to where you have to bring the audience and build the pressure of what's being done on screen. That emotion of him instantly having to go to the bathroom after his gloves are all ready and freaking out. And I think the sound for this in the fights really does it. In the first fight he does, where he's fighting the guy who was 31-0, after he said, "Hit me in the head, guys," and that guy's fighting him, and he starts to hit him in the ribs a couple times and the head a couple times, and you can hear kind of in the background it's almost what I thought of it was the Force Awakens when Kylo Ren is interrogating Rey, and you hear the Force pressure, the sound, and I felt like they used that same type of sound as he gets hit in the ribs. And you hear that kind of building, the pain of it and the pressure of it in the match that hurt, because there's that sound buzzing in the background where he gets hit in the head and it gets louder. And so you kind of see it building as a fighter would get weakened throughout that fight. So it was really interesting. And I thought that's a great sound effect to do that, other than just the gloves and the sound that they were constantly doing, is to build that emotion and pressure of a fighter without having to just have a punch sound or a hit or the breathing heavy sounds. But
Right.
So I think they do such a great job of, without soundtrack sometimes, without music, to still build a scene.
Yeah, I think. Okay, so I've been watching a lot of Steven Seagal movies recently because they're terrible and I hate them, and
Did
it's
you say
great.
Steven Seagal?
Steven Seagal. Yeah.
Okay. There's a point here somewhere.
Okay.
There's a point. Give me a second. And if you really want to appreciate the sound in this movie, watch a Steven Seagal movie right before and just compare the punch noises, because the punch noises in like a Steven Seagal movie sound like a 7-year-old playing with its action figures. It's like, pew, 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 pew. But this one, they sound fantastic.
Yep.
They sound like they hurt. And we keep using this word, but it's like, it's very immersive because every single one of those blows lands and they sound different based on where they're hitting. It's not just like the same generic sound every single time. Kind of like what Corey mentioned, but yeah, you almost got to watch a bad movie first. And then you're like, oh yeah, this is what good art is.
Yeah.
If you ever ran a script for this show and you thought, we're going to talk about Rocky, we're going to talk about Creed, you would never think that in the script of a podcast, Steven Seagal's name would be slipped in with the same names that we've been saying. So it's a great insight, Justin, because you absolutely do nail that on the head.
Well, with things like Chat GPT coming out, and that's really coming for our jobs, I got to randomize it a little bit, so that way the AI doesn't take over.
Yeah. AI would
throw.
point that out. They're not smart enough for that yet.
Nope.
That's how we know it's authentic. There's also another good, speaking of sound too, there's another one where at the end, the last fight where he gets knocked down and then it's silent and then it comes roaring back up when he kind of wakes up.
Yeah.
Just jumps off the mat. Just fires us up, man.
That was my very next comment. I'm pointing at it because I'm like, what was my next thing I was going to talk about and how long that sound went.
Yeah.
That was a good 10, 12 second fall he does. And the loudness of the fight as it was going and this building up and this emotion, this energy, and then all of a sudden he gets hit in the head and instantly silent. And that slow motion sound going down for 10, 12 seconds.
Amazing. All right, so the music of this film. I have to first off say that there's a new song for this film. It's called the Creed Suite. It's his theme song. You hear it throughout, leitmotif. And I could have sworn, I had to look it up. I was like, that's a Rocky song. It's not. It's new. It's Ludwig Göransson's, but I could have sworn it was Bill Conti from the original film because it sounds like from the late 70s. It's such a good song. I was so impressed with that. I mean, you do get little quotes to the Rocky music here and there. We talked about, of course, the Rocky theme when, right at the very end where you hear the horns, and Justin, you'll know when you see Rocky, like why that's such an important thing. But yeah, the hair stands up on your arms and you're just like, I'm ready to run through a wall when I hear that. It's amazing.
I don't need to see the movie. I grew up in America. I know what I get it. I've heard it.
I'm ready to run through a wall. But you know what, Craig? There's no better way to say it. That's true. You hear the Rocky theme song and you're like, I'm going to do one-arm push-ups. I'm going to go find a chicken to catch, and I'm going to run through the wall.
Yeah, we're feeling all motivated as I'm sitting there like eating a donut and having my Monster Energy drink. Like, I got this. Oh, man. I'm so ready to sports my way through life. Yeah.
Well, this is, I got to say too, I think I mentioned this when we talked about Mandalorian. Matt and I talked about. So Ludwig Göransson does the music for this, and of course did it for Black Panther, and that's probably what he's known for most. And then of course then the Mandalorian. And I remember the first episode of the Mandalorian I watched, and he has yeah, exactly. When he's riding the blurg, him and what's the short guy? I can't remember his name right now. I've spoken. I can't remember.
Grogu.
No, the Ugnaught guy, man. Like. Queel, rather. And they're riding across the desert trying to go to where Grogu's going to be. The one section of the Mandalorian theme comes in and it sounds like Rocky. Like with the horns and everything. And I was just like, wow, that sounds like Rocky. And then I did some research. I was like, oh, because this guy did, he had previously done Creed and had incorporated those. So it made sense now that we kind of had the DNA of that music in there. But yeah, I love the soundtrack for this film was amazing. You got some good diegetic music mixed in as well. Bianca sings, and which is interesting. When we get to characters, this is by far and away my favorite movie of her. Like this is like one of the few times I actually like her acting. Yeah. We'll get there. But yeah, you got the Roots, which is cool. I mean, they're from Philly too. And when he first comes, when Donnie first comes to Philadelphia, and Nas is bridging the gap during the training montage with the chicken, which is a great callback to Rocky 2. I love Rockies. Got the chickens must be slower. Just some fun thing. And yes, the running down the street with the motorcycles. It's called "If I Fight, You Fight," which is that's a great track, which reincorporates the Creed suite. But yeah, that's very much the "Gonna Fly Now," from Rocky 1.
In the gray sweatsuit that Rocky did too. It was a similar. It's a little Easter egg throwing it back. Same street, same sweatsuit. And
that kind of thing. So,
and did anybody
wait? Same street.
I don't know if it was the same. Was it this? Well, he ran through the whole city and on the docks and everything too.
Street.
Yeah, he's running through.
I thought it was like up the stairs of something.
Well, that happens too. But at the end when they're running up the steps.
And when he's looking at Rocky in the window, and there's no words being exchanged, but you can tell what they're saying, and like that song title, "If I Fight, You Fight," kind of going, and I teared up there. I'm not going to lie. Rocky and Creed both make me cry in several moments of the movie. And I know I cannot be the only person.
No. Anything else sound-wise? There's some great just documentary vocal sounds, like voiceover stuff in this that does some.
The sound grips of everything that they do. That's the part that just gets me is stuff in the background in the gyms. It's always there's little noises that are going on, and they slip in the background, and you don't necessarily notice them unless you pay attention. But I think nowadays when you don't have so much soundtrack and you don't do that, it's a risk because it can feel boring. It's the same thing like if you watched a sitcom, Friends or Seinfeld, and you don't have the laugh track, how different those shows would feel.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have music in the background all the time in some shows, how different this would feel. And this movie, to be able to pull that underdog feeling off and get you so locked into the story without that all the time. I mean, it does have an amazing soundtrack and they do it right, but they also have long spots where they don't, and it's amazing.
Well, I think I've noticed in more modern movies, the music plays a much larger role in terms of, hey, audience, this is what you're supposed to feel. Let me play some sad music. And that's in a good way. Like, it can enhance the emotional feel of a movie. But this one, I think, like, every other aspect is so good that silence in a lot of these situations says a lot more than the music ever could.
Yes.
Because it's letting you feel it. It's very raw. And I don't think I ever noticed a time where I'm like, oh, there should be music here to tell me how I'm feeling, or what I'm supposed to be feeling. Like, it was just obvious by what was happening. You know, he got knocked down, or he's taking punch after punch, or whatever it is. Like, you're feeling that regardless of the soundtrack.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and slide down to performance. And I think straight across all the board, everybody's very solid in this one. This is a one that, you know, Stallone gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this. And
oh my goodness,
win, unfortunately, but he's so good. And I looked at the other nominees and I was just like, I don't think I saw those movies, so I can't really say, but I think he should have won. That's all. I'm biased.
He was amazing. Like, in my mind, there are two different Stallones. There's like young Stallone and old Stallone. And at some point, maybe it was around like Spy Kids 4, possibly, where I think, or maybe it was Spy Kids 3, where like, I think he just kind of phones it in for a couple decades in his movies. Like, old Stallone, I don't think I've seen him in a good movie. I mean, you look at like Expendables and...
love those films.
I mean, yeah, but they're
totally trash, but I love them.
They're trash. Wasn't Steven Seagal in one of those movies?
Oh,
that's the second. Maybe someone's going to correct me on that. I haven't seen one.
Yeah,
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Anyway, old Stallone, I feel like, has phoned it in for a long time, and I was expecting him to do it this time, and he absolutely did not. Oh my goodness, he is fantastic in this film.
Yeah,
Stallone, there is no. He embodies the Rocky spirit, and only he could ever pull off any of these Rocky cameos or to do these things. And the way he comes in, where he's now the new Mickey, this is him in the, later generation. He still has his drawl and he still has his little quips and things that Rocky does. It's amazing. That level acting, he should have won whatever he got nominated, Best Supporting Actor. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But this film is also shadowed with talent from top to bottom of these actors. And even the boxers they bring in that are real life actual boxers, sometimes
they're pretty good.
Do that and you roll the dice as to whether they're going to be a good actor. They did a great job playing those roles and doing those amazing, just comments and things to keep it going. And so it doesn't detract from it. And I will say, on the slide scale of acting, that this is one of the only film series where I really love Michael B. Jordan. I'm not his biggest fan in Black Panther because, you know why? I love him in Creed. Absolutely love him in Creed because he's the hero. And he does such a great job of being this hero and rising. I hate to see him as a villain in Black Panther.
Oh, see, I don't...
And I never liked him in Black Panther, but I love him in Creed. Love him in Creed.
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. Yeah.
In Black Panther, he's too distracting. He's too destroy everything. Oh, and here you go.
Oh no, but he's got such a good cause. It's like you feel for the kid. And you feel for him.
No, but then you get him in Creed and you feel for him because then he says, "I gotta prove I'm not a mistake, and I gotta."
Yeah, and he's got to prove that same thing in Black Panther.
Shadow. And so then you're like, "God, it, Michael B. Jordan, I'll run through the wall with you." But in Black Panther, I'm like, oh gosh, someone take him out. Someone take him
You
out.
know what? Our mutual good friend Braden Smith hates me for this, but here's a crazy conspiracy theory. Creed is a prequel to the MCU. See, this guy in here is Killmonger before he joins the military, and you also got Valkyrie. You didn't know that they were in love previous to, Thor and Black Panther. This is really an origin story, Corey. So if you hate Black Panther, you hate Creed. Sorry. Also, I just Googled it. Steven Seagal is not in the Expendables, so I'm sorry.
Well, Stallone's in
Stallone's
Guardians
one guy who won't
too,
be
so we got some issues.
No, but this is
Wait.
where Michael B. Jordan.
I can work with that.
Okay. So, Corey, you stole one of my lines. So that's a good transition, though. Of best dialogue. The prove he's not a mistake line is so good.
You stole one of mine coming up, so
That's totally fine. So let's talk about favorite lines. Just pick one. Is there any favorite lines of dialogue from this film? Because there's a lot of great stuff in here, motivational stuff and whatever.
I can't pick one, Craig. I have to pick two, but I'll give you one to start, and then I'll throw in another one for free later.
Okay, what do you got?
My quote that I absolutely love, and this is where the wisdom of this Rocky and Creed stuff comes in, is the beauty of a Rocky series and a Creed series is the wisdom of the training that you get. You get that Mickey throwing lines at Rock that are beyond boxing, and you get Rocky throwing it at Creed that are beyond boxing. When he tells him, you see this guy staring back at you, that's your toughest opponent. I believe that's true in the ring, and I think that's true in life. And so you're watching this movie, and even though I'm not training, I'm sitting here with a bag of popcorn and drinking a soda watching this. Mm-hmm. I feel that same thing. Oh, gosh, dang it. Yeah, we're right there together, Creed. Like this is true in life. Your toughest
I'm going to run through the wall.
The guy in the mirror that you're looking at. And every move you make, you see from the opposite side, you got to duck and move. And so I think that's the beauty of this show is the wisdom that you get behind some of this. It's not just, okay, you got to punch this bag for 30 minutes and you got to do the jump rope for 5 minutes. And, and we're basically just watching a guy working out all the time.
Yeah.
But when the Rocky and Creed movies get there, you're watching a guy who's working out all the time to develop and build this lifelong thing of digging in one step, 1 foot, 1 punch, 1 round at a time. So that's my quote. There you go. That's what I think.
Justin?
I'm trying not to be salty about this. Maybe this is because of the day I had with our students, Craig. But, and I know students listen to this, so this is a moment for you guys.
Yeah.
Rocky says to Adonis, he says, "Long as you're talking, you're not listening."
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
I had that one too.
I'm going to post that on my wall in my classroom.
Yeah.
That was going to be mine. So I'm going to use a different one. It's earlier in the film when Donnie finds Rocky at the restaurant and asks him why he stopped fighting, and he says, "Time, it takes everybody out. It's undefeated."
That was my second line.
The older I get, the more that's true. And when there's professional athletes that are playing into their 40s, I'm like, how do you guys do that?
Even Tom Brady retires.
Even Tom Brady has to stop
Michael
at some
Jordan
point.
retires. Even LeBron James is going to retire someday.
Yeah.
It's just time takes everybody out.
Yeah.
That is such a great line. That was the second one I was going to throw in for free, Craig, but you took it.
Well, let's end with a happy one. That one's depressing.
So, I also enjoy the part where he's giving him advice on how to fight, and then he writes all those things down, and then he takes a picture of it with his phone. He says, "So what are you going to lose that thing or it breaks?" He says, "It's already up in the cloud." He looks around. What cloud? What cloud?
Which in 2015 would have been much more of a
still pretty new. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like the line, "Chickens are getting slower." Yes. I love that one. So, Fun fact, Rocky, when this came out, I watched this when I was in 6th grade or 5th grade. I lived on a farm, and me and my cousin, I remember we all watched Rocky, and so we talked about, because we had chickens, and they were my neighbor's chickens, actually, and we said, "Hey, you think we can catch chickens?" Rocky was catching chickens. Could that be so difficult? So we went and got my neighbor's chickens out of the coop and threw them outside, and sure enough, we were chasing them around trying to catch them. And I'm going to tell you, chickens are not that hard to catch.
And we never saw the chickens again.
No, they were not much. And I was a little shocked by it. I was like, what are you talking about, Rocky? This is building footwork. And the ones in Creed, they were in like a dog pen. They were all pinned up. And
Yeah.
like, come on, Creed, that's easy to catch. Should not have taken 30 seconds.
Yeah. Young Corey could do it.
Young Corey could have caught those things in 15 seconds.
All right. Let's talk about body language, facial expressions. My first one that I really, really liked was when Marianne comes to juvie and to pick up Adonis, and he says something like, "Are you from a group home?" And the way that she takes offense and just leans back, "I'm not from a group home," was amazing. She was so offended at that. It's like, you don't have no idea what you're being offered. But my favorite one, honestly, is in the first fight, the actual first fight in Tijuana, where he knocks that guy down and starts taking his gloves off before the fight is called.
Because he knew.
That's the level of cockiness he had at the beginning of that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets real humble there towards the end. I just think overall, Michael B. Jordan, he's not a very expressive person. Like, he almost always has like an angry face. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like levels of angry face, and he does a really good job of for having such a small range of emotion. He sure expresses a lot in that small range. I think the only time he smiled was when he was in that hotel room and what's
Bianca?
The girl's name? Yeah. Like knocks on the door and he like says, "Come in," and he like smiles, and I'm like, oh, his teeth. I don't think I've seen those before. But it almost makes it more worthwhile that you never get to see that, because you're like, oh, this is like genuine joy. He's happy that she's back in his life. And so he just does a good job of like portraying emotions, even though he's got like a determined face almost that entire time.
Yeah. There are a couple exceptions though. I was thinking of, first off, that I'm going to mention Rocky's first, when he finds out that he's got cancer and they're giving him the treatment options, and the way he says, "My wife tried that," and he kind of whispers it, and you can kind of see him squirming, which we've never seen him anything like that at all. Like, he's always been confident, even in like the first Rocky movie when he's just he's kind of a bum, but he's still kind of confident in what he's doing. And there we've never seen him that weak. And then you also see, Donnie, when Rocky tells him he has to forgive Apollo because there's nothing else he can do, and you see him get teary, is one of the best pieces of acting that Michael B. Jordan does in this film. Right? You do see him actually, kind of the facade drops.
I think that character stuff close up like that, when you see those facial expressions and the tears, those are real. And that emotion, that to get a close up camera view that close on a big theater screen, I mean, you can't hide makeup that well. You can't hide things like that well. They do such a great job of those close up work like that and making it look real and authentic, and to do that. So I love the way Stallone looks in this movie, just kind of grizzly. And, there's several shots that stand out to me from behind him with his hair that look like a guy that needs a haircut. It does not look neat and trim like you'd expect Hollywood people to have. And they put on a hair and makeup, and they, you get everything all done up. Well, no, he just looks like a regular guy right off the street who's, 2 weeks overdue for a haircut. He hasn't got one, and his neck needs shaved, and the hair's not
just a retired old dude.
Like he took a nap and woke up, and doggone it, his hair's not laying straight.
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
I mean, he has several of those scenes where you go, goodness gracious, this is, he's a guy who's living down in where he's at in this setting.
Yeah. Yeah. Still wearing the same hat though. Love that. Yeah. Still got the same hat, and seeing him wearing glasses is a little trippy too, where it's like, this is a different, evolution of, he's getting old. Yeah. And then, to go back to like to seeing him weak when he's doing the chemo and his hair's getting thin and like his eyebrows are barely there too, it's pretty jarring.
Yeah. For such like a, ripped old man, he looks very weak when he's going through that chemo. Like he can still portray that very well.
Yeah. But as far as other costume things, I mean, the flag shorts was such a great touch. Like we get that call back to Apollo, and the striped shorts that Donnie's mom sends him, and the eye at the end.
You know what
is,
really
I think,
took
one of the
me
great
out
pieces
of it with
makeup
those
too.
striped shorts?
What's that?
So those striped shorts, he gets them and it's a surprise. But then his gloves and his little coat thingy and everything else matches. It's like, it was a surprise. How are we all color coordinated all of a sudden? Doesn't add up.
Doesn't hold water.
Maybe he was just gonna have blue shorts or red shorts.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was already their color scheme?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
But as I said, his eye that's all swollen at the end, man, that's some good makeup too.
Oh,
That whole part too. I love that when he's like, "Tell me how many fingers I got up," and the guy's tapping the back of his head. 4, 2.
Well, I don't even know how that guy believes him. Like, there's no way he's seen out of that eye.
Speaking of body language, you could see the ref is like, all right. Like I don't think he fully
he kind of
does.
looks up at the manager, and you can tell he's thinking, "Yeah, okay, I know you guys." Yeah. He can't see out of that. I don't know how he would have fought one-eyed, seeing the punches coming from the left.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else for?
I do have to ask with that makeup though, Craig, because this was always the thing about Rocky was, and I've watched a few boxing fights and things. They never get to the level of Rocky punching where they stand there and just trade blows like that, like just swipe, 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 and take 7, 8 punches in a row without someone dying right there or falling. And so I always thought, would you see an actual boxing match get that far? Would they really look at that eye? Is there ever been a boxing match in history that eye has been that swollen shut and they continued for another couple rounds? Or
that's a good question.
I don't know.
I don't think people can actually take that amount of physical abuse. I don't know if that's
the ref
possible.
Would have called it.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't know where to put this, but what really took me out of the film, and I don't like it when movies do this, is it's every time they introduced a new boxer, it like paused and then put the stats up on the screen of that boxer. I hate that. I feel like it's lazy. I'm like, no, like, what do we say to the student? Like, I guess show me, don't show, not tell. But I guess you are really showing in that scene, so that doesn't apply. But
that's why I liked it.
No, tell me through dialogue how great this fighter is. Don't just put stats up on the screen. Or if you're going to put stats up on the screen, do what he was doing when he was like preparing for his fight and he had his tablet and he was like watching YouTube videos. Like, show it to me through a YouTube video, but don't stop the film and take me out of the film to put stats up.
That would add 10 extra minutes to a 2-hour movie already.
See, I thought it was great because there was the payoff. Like, you get it from Stuntman Wheeler, and then you get it from Sperino, and then you get it for Conlon, and you're like, oh crap, this guy's 36-0, 28 knockouts. They don't have to, and then they kind of do tell you that in the, like, Jim Lampley says it right after that. So I see what you're saying, but like, to me, the moment was like, yeah, you fought some guys before, and like one guy kicked your butt, and then this other guy was pretty good, and you took him down. But now this is a whole other level immediately.
But you could have characters building that and building that person up. I don't need a stat block like I'm playing Street Fighter.
At first, I felt that same way, Justin, because I thought, why would you just throw that up there? It's like, am I watching a documentary? Just throw his baseball card. It's a baseball card feel up there and throw his stats. Mm-hmm. And I'm supposed to just move on with the movie. But then I thought about it, and the way that Craig just said it right there is exactly why. Because then in the movie, you're almost an expert in this world now because you just said, oh man, this guy's 36-0 and he's never lost, and he was a fourth alternate on the Olympic team. So it's almost like you threw out baseball. You're an expert in the stats and you threw it out there as if you were standing next to Adonis and you could have just introduced him and said, hey, here's Leo Lyon and he's 17-0. It's like you can throw out the stats. And so it makes the audience member feel like they're part of this world. Like, oh, that guy's a good guy. He's really.
But you could just have an audience member just whisper over and be like, oh, the guy's 27-0. I whispered to the other side of the mic, so I don't know.
Or Rocky could have introduced him and said, hey, look at over here. This is Leo. He's 17-0.
Yeah, boom.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah. Okay. So we're running a little long on time, so we're going to skip down to setting design. And the main thing with this is that a lot of it's filmed on location, which is awesome. So the main fight is at Goodison Park. It's actually there. There's 100,000 people watching that. Most of it's in Philly, which is great. Corey, you mentioned the Front Street Gym, and that's an actual gym, which is awesome. That's why it feels so authentic. There's even Adrian's restaurant is another. It's not actually Adrian's, but it's an actual restaurant that they're filmed there. So you have this level of realism, verisimilitude, if you will, because of where you're filming these things. And like, I just thought that was fantastic that they would, make those choices so that we be, again, it kind of immersed into that real world feel, even though it's kind of a fantasy, but it also it feels like a real drama. But I wanted to say too, that after seeing Rocky, that Mighty Mix looks weird, all cleaned up. I mean, that's the way it would be, because it's the famous gym where Rocky trained. But I mean, it was such a rundown, just hole in the wall place in the original film that it's a little jarring just to see it all kind of polished up and modern.
I did like the original Rocky poster in the background.
Yeah.
Where they had it right behind the ring. And it wasn't so obvious, but you see it back there. It's that original Rocky poster with him on it. Was that Rocky 1 or Rocky 2, that poster? But I think it was Rocky.
Yeah. As far as props go, I really want that Philly steak sandwich. That looked delicious.
Good, doesn't it? Man.
You got Rocky's rubber ball again. He's got the hat and the rubber ball. My favorite prop, though, is the fact that Rocky has a landline for a phone that is apparently listed. And it actually makes sense that Rocky wouldn't be worried about his phone being listed, because Tommy Holiday, Ricky Collins' manager, finds him like no problem. He just like looks him up in the phone book, calls him up on the phone.
Yeah.
Come to England, let's fight.
I like the turtle. The turtle's a nice touch that Rocky still has a turtle, having gone to the pet store all the time to try and flirt with Adrian. It was a nice throwback to having the turtle.
Well, those are Stallone's actual turtles.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of you are talking about.
You'll get there. You'll have to report back. Characters. I mentioned earlier, this is like the one movie I like Tessa Thompson in. I guess I like her in both Creed movies. I think this is the most likable that she's ever been. She's annoying and as Valkyrie to me, and I don't like her at all in Men in Black International. I don't know how many other things I've seen her in, but a few other things, but I like her just fine in this.
See, I'm the opposite. I liked her in Men in Black, and I liked her in Ragnarok.
Yeah. But I like her in this a lot. I think
what I like about her and how they wrote her in this story is that she was not just a love interest or a girlfriend for Creed. She is someone who is also his girlfriend, but has a career on the side and is trying to pursue her own dreams aside from him.
Yeah. And
so I think it's a nice way to portray that she's not just, she's not just eye candy sitting on the side of the ring. Oh my gosh,
sure.
Fight.
Yeah.
She's also doing her own thing, which is a great way to portray that we, even though you're partnered together, you also have a separate life that you have to pursue your own goals.
And she's got a character arc with the deafness the hearing loss that she's dealing with too. So a well-rounded character, I thought. One thing that took me out a little bit was having Felicia Rashad play Mary Ann, just because, she's Mrs. Cosby, or Huxtable rather. Will always be, because I grew up in the 80s. But the fact that Sylvia Meals, who was the original Mrs. Creed in Rocky 2 and Rocky 4, she had died in 2011, so she wasn't available. It wasn't like a recast just, for the sake of recasting.
But I absolutely love Felicia Rashad in here.
I do too. I think she's great in this.
Because, you know what the reason is because I think all those years watching her in the Cosby Show, where she had to discipline her kids or she had to have conversations and do the angry mom tone.
Yep.
And to hear her talk to young Apollo or young Adonis Creed when he was young and talking to him and kind of purse her lips a few times, or when he's older, pursed her lips a couple times. And I thought, oh my gosh, here comes the Claire Huxtable. Yep. Here's a speech. Here's a comment. Here's a dig. You better, you're in trouble now. You know, she does such a great job. I think she is a next level talent. And I think that Huxtable role she played just made her, she's so incredible in this movie.
Yeah. She's America's mom, Corey.
Yes.
So we've talked about Hero's Journey already. It's very much a mirror of Rocky's journey. And it's, we're world building. The biggest thing I had was, does it work on its own? And I think we've established that yes, it does work on its own. So let's talk final thoughts. Justin, why don't you tell us, what do you think? Final thoughts on Creed?
Well, I'm going to watch the next one, and then I'm going to watch the prequels. I don't know if they're considered prequels, but I'm going to watch them. They are to me in my generation.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, it's rare that a movie puts me on the edge of my seat and like gets my heart pumping. And this was that movie. But I think a lot of it is because it takes the time to set up the characters. It takes time to set up their motivations, and then it lets you watch them fail over and over. And it feels so real that you're not sure, is he going to win? It just, yeah, fantastic film. I like it. And I didn't expect to.
Nice. So I'm going to change my advice from last time. Before you watch Creed 2, I highly recommend you watch Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4.
At least Rocky 4. Yeah. You could skip Rocky Balboa and you could skip Rocky 5. But.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could come back to those, but Rocky 4 is very informative for Creed 2. Like it is, like you kind of have to have seen that one. Just saying.
I'll add it to the list.
Corey, what about you?
And I think there's some parallels to Rocky 3 and Creed 3. I think, oh my gosh.
Well, yeah.
Clubber Lang and...
I don't think it's Clubber Lang's kid, though.
It's not, but I think the level of scared I am for Creed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this movie's
take some punishment.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Craig, I'm going to summarize everything with this for my wrap up here. I'm talking about a movie about a fighter determined to move past nothing, who gets his big shot, falls in love, trains hard, goes the distance, and becomes a classic underdog tale to become an ultimate underdog movie. Am I talking about Rocky or am I talking about Creed? Spoiler alert, I'm talking about both of them because they're the same thing. And I think that's what makes this movie great. I think this movie is a must watch. You have to watch Rocky and you have to watch Creed. And this movie stands on its own, but it also pays homage and passes the torch from Rocky in such a great way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that initially I was not interested in this movie because it had been a while since I'd seen Rocky. I think I had seen Rocky 5 in the theater, and that was the last Rocky movie I'd seen. I hadn't seen Rocky Balboa when this movie came out. And then I watched it at home. I think it was on Hulu. Jody and I watched it, and I was like, wow, this is actually really good. Now I have to go back and revisit. And then I bought all the Rocky movies on Blu-ray and watched them all again. And it just kind of reinvigorated my love for the character and the series. And just, the way and it's a feel-good movie. It's very inspiring, and it's just great to have Rocky back. And he's not in the third one, Creed 3, but I think I'm going to try and stay spoiler-free for Justin. Creed 2 does a good enough job of making that why he doesn't need to be in the third Creed movie. So it is kind of it's your journey now. It's the Creed story. It's not the continuation of Rocky's journey so much, but this, like I said earlier, it's a reboot. It's a legacy sequel. It's a remake of Rocky. And I don't care that it's a remake of Rocky. I don't care that it ends pretty much the same way that Rocky 1 did, because it feels authentic. And I enjoyed the crap out of watching it this time. So I'm very much looking forward to watching Creed 3.
That's the highest praise from Craig, is enjoyed the crap out of.
That is.
That's like top marks. 10 out of 10.
There you go.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, Craig's getting that wrap up voice. I think I have a question for our listeners, those of you that follow us on social media, that I'd like to discuss. Is this, as well as Star Wars Episode 7, are very similar in that they mirror the movies that they're continuing or rebooting or whatever they're doing. But in my opinion, this does a much better job of it than Episode 7 did to Episode 4 of Star Wars. Why? Why did that work? Why does this work and Star Wars doesn't?
That's good.
Or maybe Star Wars does. Possibly you disagree and you love the 7, 8, 9. I don't know, but I'd like to discuss.
That's an interesting question, because they were released within a month of each other, so they're in production at the same time. So that's
an interesting theory to take on right there, Justin. That's not a 1-minute comment either. That could be a whole podcast show right there.
We may have to do a legacy sequel show.
Episode 7. Why does Creed work and Star Wars Episode 7 does not?
I have many thoughts, but I would I'm going to save them.
We should definitely chat about that in the Facebook group as well. So as we close, we just want to say thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook, email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com, or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend about us. One last thing, our next episode will be a review of Shazam. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from Shazam, and we'll share it on the next episode.